Well, I want you to maybe even give us more info on why it seems counterintuitive. Like, I'm thinking that I've had a lot of people come to me to start a podcast, or they already have a podcast. This is the sad part. They've already got a podcast and they went way too broad, in my opinion. So I agree with you, John. I don't like broad. I don't think broad is the right thing to do, but I want your opinion, your thoughts, or your experience, or your data that shows why is it that if I decide to have a sport podcast that covers golf, tennis, basketball, and football, for example, all four of those, golf, tennis, basketball, and football, why exactly would that be smaller listener base than if I just had a golf or just tennis, just basketball, or just football?
Sure. And there's a variety of factors. And let's think of what we traditionally have as an independent podcaster up front, right? Before we join a network, before any of that happens, as you've talked about, a lot of solo podcasters, right? If we have a podcast, for example, that is covering 4 or 5 different sports, and let's say their podcast is an hour long, how much time do you have to really dedicate and drive a point home about a specific piece, right? You could want to talk about a specific player, and you might have to cut for time due to the fact that, okay, you have to cover other pieces, right? Whereas your listener who's really dedicated on that specific player, that specific team, wants to go, well, I want to hear more about this. I want to hear more of what you're thinking, maybe see, what's coming up for the season, things of that nature. And there's a lot of different pieces to that. I think that from what we've seen, the more detailed you can get, the more content you can put out about that specific topic, the more of an authority you become. And as people start seeing you as the authority, that's what brings people in to your ecosystem. And to your point about what's advantageous about, let's say, for example, having just that niche as opposed to the broad audience, the way that you frame your podcast, even something as small as optimizing your titles and optimizing your descriptions, you can really do a lot of great work when you optimize those keywords, as opposed to, okay, thanks for checking out my sports, football, soccer, baseball, tennis podcast, where you have this just extremely long keyword stuffed biography, right? It gives you the ability to make sure that anything that you put in those are optimized. It makes sure that when you have your content searchable on these different directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, those places, it gives you the ability to have a podcaster type in football, or even more granular, type in, let's say, New York Giants, and be able to pull up the podcasts that are specific to that, as opposed to, let's type in the New York Giants and they listen to a podcast that's all about the Chicago Bears. So it makes it that much easier to really funnel in and get your audience to find you in the way that you want your audience to find you.
So I'm thinking about it too, John. I'm thinking about, like, let me just ask you a question before I share this. John, are you a sport fan?
A bit.
Okay.
Professional wrestling is really my sport. So
professional wrestling. And I know you, don't you write music for professional wrestlers?
I do.
That's pretty cool.
That is a fact.
How long have you been doing that?
That's been about 2 years now, 3 years now.
So you love professional wrestling.
Yes.
What else do you love?
I would say that when it comes to sports, probably wrestling is my biggest thing. The second thing would be, I guess the second thing would be MMA, but then third would probably be baseball, football. They all kind of live in the same tier there for me.